Auburn Avenue was considered one of Atlanta's most famous streets, replete with successful Black-owned businesses, beautiful houses of worship, and an unparalleled nightlife. Sweet Auburn Historic District generated significant wealth prior to the Civil Rights Movement. A bustling thoroughfare, it was home to Atlanta Life Insurance Company and the nation's first successful Black newspaper, the Atlanta Daily World. Renowned artists like Miles Davis and Gladys Knight graced the stage of the Royal Peacock. Sunday mornings meant Big Bethel AME Church and the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church, where both Dr. Martin Luther King Sr. and Jr. delivered powerful sermons. Civil rights activist and businessman John Wesley Dobbs coined the area Sweet Auburn. Dubbed its unofficial mayor, he was the grandfather of Atlanta's first Black mayor, Maynard Jackson. Sweet Auburn Historic District received a National Historic Landmark designation in 1976.
Well, today we're here for the Transportation Justice Town Hall, and it is just what it says. It is Campbellton Road getting the justice it needs for transportation. We know that Campbellton Road was promised $317 million of investment, and we as a community want to see that happen. And I mean, every level of government is weighing in today. This has gone through the MARTA Board of Directors. This has also gone through Council, City Council. This legislation was ratified in 2018. Campbellton Road is at the top of the project list for the more MARTA projects. At this point, I would love to see Campbellton Road with light rail, and light rail with a dedicated lane. So it won't be like our streetcar. It will have a dedicated lane, and it will also have 100 years of investment from MARTA. This Southwest Atlanta corridor, especially Campbellton Road, is at the very top of their ridership for the whole MARTA system. So that means that we have people that must ride the bus to the tune of like 4,000 people a day. We get Campbellton Road right, the development will follow, and Atlanta will become more equitable. We'll have more affordable housing here. We'll have more grocery stores. We have zero. It is time for people to do what they're supposed to do on Campbellton Road, and that's why we're here today at this town hall.
Today is Rosa Parks' Day. It's the anniversary of her birthday, and her action was about making sure that transit was available for everybody. It was about desegregating buses so that everybody could ride. And so I think that it's a great reminder as Transit Equity Day that transit is really about access. It's about making sure that people can get to jobs, can get to work, can get to school. And so her legacy is one that's not only about desegregation, but it's also about economic access. There's this incredible 1950s bus behind me, similar to the one that Rosa Parks sat down and wouldn't move on. She was an inspiration that individual people can make a difference, that individual people as part of a whole can really change America. Public transit is really the backbone of making sure that our economy can grow. Whether it's bus or it's rail, it's really the way that we are able to move our lives. And so I think the vision for equity in transit is making sure transit's everywhere, making sure it's affordable, making sure that it goes to the places that we need it to go.
This stretch of land along the Chattahoochee River is the former site of the Chattahoochee Brick Company. The factory that occupied this space manufactured bricks that were used to rebuild the city of Atlanta following the Civil War. Conditions here were anything but favorable, as convicts, predominantly black men arrested for small crimes or no crimes, were forced to work there. They were often beaten into submission and subject to other horrible types of treatment. Many lost their lives on this land. Some were reportedly buried here. Local activists have advocated turning the site into a memorial as opposed to any further industrial development. The City of Atlanta recently filed a petition to stop Norfolk Southern's plans to build a fuel terminal here. In a recent statement, officials with Norfolk Southern announced it would abandon those plans. I'm Councilmember Dustin Hillis. This site is in my district. I stand with our nearby neighborhoods, historic preservationists, and environmental advocates who have been tireless in their efforts to fight this development. Our work is not done. We can't rest until this important piece of land is in the city's possession. I will continue to have conversations with my colleagues and the administration on the best way to ensure that happens expeditiously. The legacy lives.
Today is Transit Equity Day. It's a day that's recognized across the country to recognize how important public transportation is to the lives of people in our communities, and that it's important to also support the people in our communities who rely on public transportation to get around. Today is also Rosa Parks' birthday, so this is a very important Transit Equity Day because of the inequities that were experienced on the public transportation systems in Montgomery, Alabama. It's a rainy day today. A lot of people who are trying to get to work are having to stand out in the rain waiting for a bus that might come 10 or 15 minutes later, may come a little early and might disrupt their whole day. We need to make sure that people can get around safely. Having relied on public transportation myself for several years, having given up my car and commuting all the way up to Forsyth County from right here in Mechanicsville, I've seen the daily realities of so many of my neighbors, of my constituents, and I want to make sure that I could take that history, that legacy, as an inspiration to make sure we get better policy for everyone across the city of Atlanta.
Two, three.
We're here because once again Atlanta is making history. We have opened up Unity Place, the first in the nation, one-of-a-kind housing for police recruits. So that's why we are here now. We are giving our recruits some place to stay, actually in one of our most vibrant communities. As we talk about community policing, we must give the officer a chance and opportunity to get to know the community. Once you're on call, once you're working, you really don't have that opportunity. But here now, at the beginning of their training, they have an opportunity to actually live amongst the neighbors, to actually live amongst the people that they will actually be protecting. So this is why it is very important. They're very excited about having the police officers in their neighborhood. First and foremost, it gives them a sense of security. And then once again, it also gives the neighborhood an opportunity to get to know the officer, because it goes both ways. The neighborhood has to know the officer as well as the officer knowing the neighborhoods. This is a catalyst. With everything, even with America being pioneers, we have shown and proven that this can work and will work. So now it gives other people the possibility to actually go off and do something different. Don't stop with the police. Don't stop with the police. We have firemen, we have teachers, we have public safety workers, public workers. So let's start this and let this be the catalyst for us moving forward doing other great things throughout the city such as this.
I'm just thankful that the people of Atlanta have given me an opportunity to do work on behalf of the city. I'm looking forward to working with my new colleagues. Some of them have been friends of mine for a long time. Some of them are people who I've just met in the last few weeks, and I look forward to doing wonderful things on behalf of the city of Atlanta. I'm been an advocate and an organizer fighting for communities on one side of this kind of conversation, but I recognize that there are a lot of systems, a lot of processes, a lot of just knowledge that I have not been privy to, that I look forward to being able to learn about the histories, the ideas, just the stories that really have made the city what it is. And I look forward to learning from people who've been here for years or for decades in some cases. And I think it's important to help bridge the gap between the old and the new, the past and the future. We have to have positive relationships and even potentially friendships to move our city forward.
I am very much looking forward to working with the experienced members on council. I've also reached out to several predecessors of mine in the role of Atlanta City Council President for advice as well, and so I'm looking forward to learning. I think this job is very much about learning about the city, learning about what residents need and what they want, and the ways in which we can help. And so I'm very excited to learn from all facets of council and the city in order to try to do a great job in this role. I think today really marks a crossroads for Atlanta and a chance to collaborate on really big things. The mayor-elect, the council, we have a lot of things to do, but I think the spirit in which we come at today is one of working together, of building bridges. I think that's what folks are looking for, and I'm excited to work in that way going forward.
In May of 2021, a historical marker was erected near the intersection of Ponce de Leon Avenue and Oakdale Road. It tells the story of the life and tragic death of Porter Flenoy Turner. He was a husband and father of 2 sons. A diligent provider, Turner worked 60 hours a week as a mechanic and porter at a car dealership and garage. He made extra money by driving a cab at night. On the evening of August 20th, 1945, 50-year-old Turner was stabbed on the lawn of a home on Springdale Road. It would be June of 1946 before it was revealed that members of the Ku Klux Klan bragged about Turner's killing. No arrests were ever made in the lynching.
And this is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Atlanta City Council City Utilities Committee. I'm Howard Shook. I will be chairing the meeting today, and so I will call the meeting to order. Ms. Kempson Wright, who is with us today?
Mr. Chair, I will take a formal roll call if you're okay with that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari. Councilmember Andrea L. Boone.
Present.
Councilmember Dustin Hillis. Councilmember Antonio Lewis.
Present.
Councilmember Alex One.
I'm here.
Councilmember Jason Winston.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you do have a quorum of 5 members present.
All right. Are there any voice voters today?
Mr. Chair, currently at the moment, Councilmember Winston is a voice.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, so is Councilmember Juan. I can't get into e-boardroom, but they're going to try working on it.
Thank you. All right, so we have a quorum. We've called the meeting to order. Ms. Kimson-Wright, could you please read the sacred words known as the remote meeting statement?
Yes, this City Utilities Committee meeting is being conducted remotely as advertised and as in accordance with the Official Code of Georgia 5014-1. The meeting will be conducted in conformance with Robert's Rules of Order and the Rules of Council as authorized by the City Code. The public may access the meeting by the following conference bridge: toll-free access 404-902-5066, conference ID 151945, which was noted on the Friday, February 11th public meeting notice. The public may also view the meeting on Channel 26, citycouncilAtlantaGA.gov, or the Council's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages via at ATO Council. All presentations are available on the Atlanta City Council City Utilities Committee presentation page. The agenda was published and made available on Friday, February 11th via atlantacitygA.iqm2.com. Public comment was accepted between the hours of 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. on yesterday, Monday, February 14th. All persons present on the presentation conference bridge are requested to mute your phones and speakers. Speakers must be acknowledged by the presiding officer prior to speaking. Each council member is requested to open your Outlook email and minimize the screen to view amendments, substitutes, and informational documents which were distributed earlier or may be distributed during the meeting. Thank you all in advance for your cooperation.
All right, and thank you. Are there any proposed changes to today's agenda, Ms. Kempson-Wright?
No, there are not.
All right, then I will move to accept the agenda as printed. Is there a second?
Juan, second.
Thank you. There's no discussion. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open.
Mr. Winston, how do you vote?
Mr. Chair, I'm now doing the e-board vote.
Oh, okay, excellent. Has Ms. Bakhtiari been able to join us? All right.
Vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted.
All right, thank you, committee members. You've all poured over the minutes of the prior meeting. Unless there are questions or comments, I will move to adopt them.
Juan, second.
Thank you. Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been, the minutes have been approved.
All right. You have all been forwarded our draft 2022 committee goals and objectives. It's a pretty lengthy list. A lot of good subject matter here that I'm looking forward to getting into. Is there anyone else that would like to add anything or subtract anything? All right, hearing none, then I will move to adopt these goals for 2022.
Juan, second.
All right, let's open her up.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The committee goals and objectives have been adopted.
All right, excellent. And now, public comment.
One moment, Mr. Chair.
Greetings, young members and staff. A special greetings to you citizens of Atlanta listening in and interested in how city government is working. Ben Howard, Senior Advocate, Public Policy Analyst. The People's TV Board of Directors is scheduled to meet again on the third Wednesday of the month, tomorrow. Did the People's TV General Manager give you the courtesy of notifying you committee members about the meeting? Don't bother to answer, but think about this. It's not fair that the people of Atlanta have to go without a functioning People TV Board of Directors. Those 9 vacancies on the People TV Board of Directors need to be filled expeditiously. I refer to the 2 board slots that the People TV board members are supposed to fill. I refer to the 4 People TV board slots allocated to the Atlanta City Council. I refer to the 3 People TV board slots allocated to the office of the mayor. All 9 of these vacancies need to be filled with community conscious, grassroots citizens who believe in public television and who can ensure, among other things, that notices of People TV board meetings get out to the public in accordance with state law, the Georgia Open Meetings Act. And while we're at it, let's start hiring and assigning staff persons for People TV and to other boards and commissions under the purview of this City Utilities Committee. We have done it before. It was working. We need to do it again.
Good morning. My name is Adrienne Coleman-Tyler, and I'm calling regarding the public access channel, Comcast Channel 24. As you may or may not know, the contract, the initial one-year contract with People TV ends on March the 9th. And I am calling to inquire about whether or not the administration and council has made a decision whether or not to renew that contract, which does require council approval. Or if the city is, as Ms. Harris has informed council previously, proceeding with alternative options in terms of the operation. If you would, I hope that you will address that this morning and give an update for the public in terms of the status of the public access channel, as well as to provide some update in terms of what the new operations will be like. There are key stakeholders that have been waiting for years now to hear from the city in terms of what the future of public access is going to be. I look forward to hearing your comments today, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
That concludes public comment, Mr. Chair.
All right, and Ms. Bakhtiari, have you joined us? She's perhaps muted.
This is Councilmember Hillis. I've joined also. I was on mute for a while.
Okay. Let me address this Coleman Tyler's concern here. Obviously, we're going to have to take up the subject of whether People TV, kind of where are we, how did we get here? We have a lot of new members. And so as a first step to having an orderly conversation, I spoke with Ms. Kempson-Wright, and I have requested that she reach out to Ms. Coleman-Tyler and ask that she submit a brief 1 or 1.5 page, memo outlining whatever she thinks it's most important that the committee, and particularly the new committee members, understand as to kind of the recent history that's brought us to where we are, and then recommendations for next steps. And then I've asked that Ms. Kempson-Wright also contact the administration and make that same request of the appropriate administration official. And then with that, we can digest that, and that'll give us a chance to learn more about what the administration wants to do. And I imagine we can take things up after we complete that kind of preliminary step. So that's my thinking on that subject. I believe that brings us to today's quarterly report via the Department of Public Works. If Commissioner Wiggins is unmuted, he can take it away.
Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning.
Committee members, are you able to hear me well enough?
Commissioner, we can hear you.
Okay. Good morning again. So this morning, the Department of Public Works will present the FY22 second quarter report. The reporting period for activity referenced during this presentation is from October through December of 2021. Next slide. You'll see the table of contents for the presentation that is indexed by category. Next slide. So I'd like to discuss some of our major priorities and accomplishments for FY22 for the second quarter at least. As you know, we experienced some pretty significant challenges beginning December 20th due to the highly contagious Omicron variant. In preparation for that, we actually increased our staffing by 25% during the national labor crisis. However, we still experienced some challenges with adequate staffing even after we partnered with several temporary staffing agencies. As I mentioned, we began to experience those challenges during the 20th. I am happy to say as of today, effective January 31st, we were able to return to our normal curbside collection services, providing all three services without any interruption so far. And the recent accomplishments are largely due to some of our deployment strategies that have been introduced by some of our new key leadership staff members that have been brought on board. We recently hired an installation chief for our Maddox Park facility, and we have also hired a deputy director of curbside collections who is doing an outstanding job with actually deploying more crews with limited personnel. We're still actively recruiting, but we are able to provide citywide services without interruption so far. We're spending our weekends canvassing areas, specifically for yard trimmings in areas with high disposal rates, just to ensure that we will be able to stay ahead of the situation. As we discussed in previous CUC discussions, we partner with private landscape firms to assist with the heavy coverage of yard trimmings in areas with high disposal rates as well. Something else that we're really proud of, that we received our reaccreditation from the from the American Public Works Association. We are very proud of this, as there are only 129 accredited public works agencies in North America. The Office of Police Services received an award from the Southeast Governmental Fleet Managers Association for the Best City Fleet Award. We're very proud of this award as well. The department was featured in the Georgia American Public Works Association magazine for this award. I believe the category that we won was under the category of innovation. So I'd like to give a big thank you for our Office of Fleet Services. They're doing a great job. Next slide. We'll provide a brief overview of solid waste services. Next slide. So I would like to go over our communication strategy, especially when we were experiencing our challenges with curbside collections. We partnered with our MPU representatives to get out daily messages about our strategy to primarily collect recycling, which was our biggest challenge. As you know, our priority first is to make sure that solid waste collections are handled. Second is our recycling services and yard trimming services follow recycling. So we also sent out weekly email communications to the mayor and council, providing updates of the activity that has taken place and our strategy for the following week moving forward. We also utilized Nextdoor and other social media outlets. Nextdoor was proven to be helpful because we were able to send targeted messages out to specific neighborhoods explaining how we plan to address standing recycling during that time. So we received a lot of positive feedback from our NPU representatives and many of our neighborhood associations as well. And we intend to continue using that strategy and engaging our NPU representatives with quarterly meetings to provide updates on activities that are taking place in the Department of Public Works. Next slide. We'll provide a brief overview of our human resources activities. Next slide. We've introduced a few new positions in the org chart. One is a special projects coordinator that will help to organize specific public works projects. We have also hired another deputy commissioner, Deputy Commissioner Anu Salsovitz. We'll go into a little bit more detail about his duties and some of the areas that he will provide oversight. Next slide. It's a brief snapshot of Deputy Commissioner Salsovitz, as we affectionately call Deputy Commissioner Anu. He comes to us with a vast amount of experience, both private and public sector experience. Also has a pretty strong background in the IT career field, which has proven beneficial as we explore software programs to assist with curbside collections and our routing software for our vehicles, which we will provide an update during our next quarterly update on our progress with procuring the software. So please help us to welcome Deputy Commissioner Anu to the Department of Public Works. Next slide. So for our overall departmental staffing scorecard, we were about 74% filled during the time of this reporting period. We had approximately 192 positions that weren't filled. The majority of those vacancies were in the Office of Solid Waste Services. With the help of the Department of Human Resources, we're continually closing that gap and getting closer to our recruitment goals. The biggest challenge as far as recruiting for specific positions has been in the Office of Fleet Services for specialized mechanic positions. It's been a little bit easier for us to recruit for entry-level mechanic positions. Our upper-tier mechanics it has been just a challenge sourcing candidates for this position. It's a very competitive market. Our competitors aren't just local government agencies. We are competing with the private sector as well. So the pay is competitive, and we have looked at our pay structure and made some adjustments, and hopefully we will be able to close the gap in the area of vehicle maintenance as well. Next slide. Provide a brief overview of our emergency preparedness activity. The Department of Public Works, our City Hall staff has returned to the office, all divisions in all areas. And we continue to provide testing to make sure that everyone is safe and ensuring that we have an adequate amount of PPE on hand for our staff members as well. Next slide. For the next slide, you'll see just a brief snapshot of our performance overview. You'll see that during the month of November was our heaviest month for garbage collections, and the same for recycling. The only difference is during the month of December, we experienced a slight uptick in the tonnage for yard trimming collections. Also see a brief snapshot of our safety events, our accidents, incidents, and injuries. There was a slight uptick in injuries during the month of October. we were able to address those issues and to bring those injuries down significantly during the months of November and September. To the immediate right, you will see our metrics for our pedestrian trash cans that were serviced, approximately 1,492 during this reporting period, and the miles swept for our street sweeping activities as well. Next slide. So far as our landfill activity, our landfills have been closed for the past 20 years. Although the landfills have been closed, we still have to monitor these sites. A significant amount of work goes into making sure that we remain in compliance with Georgia EPD requirements as well as the Environmental Protection Division, the federal side of the house. So part of that process is that we perform monthly and quarterly methane sampling and biannual groundwater sampling as well, and routine vegetation cap maintenance, in addition to gas collection and control system maintenance. So 3 out of 4 of our landfills are in compliance with methane parameters. We continue to work with the Georgia Environmental Protection Division to attain viable solutions to reduce gas levels. We are within compliance of our reporting activities as well. So overall, we're in very good standings. We just have to keep a close monitor of our methane parameters. We'll move on to our bulk collection overview. Next slide. So we filled a little bit over 8,700 requests for bulk collections. Our schedule and timeline has been that we have been able to provide this service within the same week of the request. You'll see the schedule for our bulk pickup request. The website. You can simply use this website or call 311 to schedule a bulk pickup request. Our top items are household furnitures and bulk yard trimmings, mattresses, and bulk yard trimmings as well. Next slide. So you'll see a brief snapshot of our financial overview. Both the Solid Waste Division and the Office of Fleet Services, we're tracking well for solid waste. We're about 47% of our overall budget, and for fleet services, we're at 43%. Anything below 50% indicates that we're tracking well and spending the allotted funds according to schedule. Below, you'll see a brief snapshot of our pandemic expenses. A little bit over $20K for contracted labor, a little bit over $23 for supplies. Okay. Next, we have the Office of Fleet Services. Next slide. So the Office of Fleet Services services a little bit over 5,800 pieces of equipment citywide, and which ranges from heavy equipment from our fire department and several of their apparatuses, passenger vehicles throughout the city, and small engine repair. So maintaining over 1,500 pieces of equipment is a huge undertaking, especially while we're understaffed in the area of technicians. I'm proud to say that we've been able to maintain our service level agreements throughout all of the departments within the city. Although we are still short in staffing, we're extremely proud of that. Overall, we're about 92% of our citywide vehicle availability. And for this reporting period, we spent a little bit over 15,000 hours in labor. Next, we'll provide a brief overview of our safety division. So our safety division completed a little bit over 2,800 hours of training during this reporting period. 2,200 of those hours were CDL classroom training, and about a little bit under 500 hours were for CDL road skills training. I think it's important to note that we are able to use some of our existing personnel, particularly our environmental service workers who perform work actually collecting debris at curbside. They have been afforded the opportunity to receive their CDL certifications. We're working on a more structured program than we have had before. Due to attendance and staffing levels, we had to suspend our CDL training program. We plan to reinstitute the program within the next 2 months. Next slide. So we spent a little bit over 160 hours with our new hire safety trainings, which is very important to keep our team safe. Collecting waste at the curbside provides a huge occupational hazard. Our team does a good job of getting ahead of issues. And with this slide, you'll see the category of training that has been provided during this time period. So last but not least, we would like to pay a special recognition to Mr. Gregory Gray, who we call Mr. Gray. He received the Spotlight Award from Mayor Dickens. Mr. Gray has been with the city for well over 2 decades and has been very instrumental in providing institutional knowledge. His positive attitude has been infectious across the department, and many of our team members look up to Mr. Gray for advice and overall direction. And we're just very proud to have him on our team, and this award is well deserved. Next slide. So that will conclude our quarterly presentation for this time period. Our next quarterly presentation, we will dive into our software that we're procuring, our current method of collecting and tracking activities, as well as some of our other positions that have been instituted in the area of customer service. We recently hired a service delivery manager to triage complaints from ATL 311 down to all of our public works institutions to ensure that all of our cases are signed off in a timely manner, and most importantly, to ensure that each complaint that has been signed off that has been properly addressed. So we'll be prepared to provide a little bit more of an explanation of the roles and objectives of that particular position during our next update. At this time, I'll address any questions should you have any.
All right, Commissioner, thank you for that informational report. Colleagues, questions for the Commissioner? Okay, well, while others are possibly getting organized, I've got a couple questions and comments. What's going on with your suite unit? Are they writing citations, or have they been sort of pulled away from those more specialized duties to sort of enter the fray and getting the meat and potatoes work done?
That's a great question, Chairman Shook. We're doing a little bit of both. We're utilizing some of our suite team members to assist with quality assurance and quality control. And what I mean by that, they are auditing a certain percentage of our curbside collection routes. Their duties have been extended into the quality assurance, quality control arena, but they are still addressing sanitation-related and code violations that occur on the public right-of-way. So they're still doing the duties that they previously performed, but we've added the additional duty of quality control and the quality assurance. We are anticipating hiring more employees to perform that duty, but at the current time, our suite team members are assisting with that effort, as well as
all right.
safety.
Before I recognize Mr. Wan and Mr. Lewis, just one other quick question. Congratulations on the bouquet that was thrown to Fleet Services. My question is, how was that unit able to perform so well with around a 30% vacancy rate?
Well, they've worked extended hours, and we really have developed strategies around the availability of equipment by performing preventive maintenance on some of our reserve fleet vehicles. We had some vehicles that were scheduled to be surplus, but due to our challenges with the delivery of new equipment, there's a backlog of new equipment, we decided to delay the surplus of those vehicles and to perform repairs on those vehicles to ensure that we had the equipment that we needed for our vehicle readiness. And so
right,
required.
Okay, thank you. I'll recognize Mr. Warren, will be followed by Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, first of all, I want to thank you all and your team for coming out to District 6 for the clean sweep activity a couple of weeks ago. It was good to see you out there. And I appreciate kind of the efforts you're making citywide to do that and be visible. A couple of questions. First of all, I'm kind of curious to see in terms of the solid waste services, why there isn't a similar scorecard like there is for kind of the other ones. It's certainly that's something y'all track, or do you just track it in a different way that it would be easy for us to follow?
Yeah, so as it relates to solid waste services, as far as the scorecard, we wanted to provide data. We had concerns with some of the data that may have been skewed, and I would kind of go into a little bit further of an explanation. So with our recent curbside collection challenges, again, we are trying to provide the same level of service as we have before with our limited staff. And so typically we have assigned service areas, and we are using vehicles that are crossing over service areas and chipping in. And due to that approach, we have not been able to capture the data in the manner that we have been in the past. So just for the sake of an example, just monitoring the amount of tonnage that's collected in a particular service area, we aren't able to do that because we have our teams crossing over into other areas. Along those lines as well, I mentioned earlier that we are looking to procure a new routing software, and the routing software that we currently have is not able to adequately account for the amount of customers that we currently have. And so it stops a little bit short of 100,000 subscribers. And although we have slightly above that, customers, as it relates to customers, the data that we are able to collect from the system, we aren't completely confident that those numbers are accurate. Our leadership team has conducted 2 visits to go to some of our sister cities that have a similar amount of customers and employees to look at the software programs that they have. We want to make sure that the next software program that we procure, we look at the software in real-world application and observe the back office activities. And so for that reason, we aren't confident that the data that we would be able to provide with the existing software would be accurate data.
So I appreciate that. I guess where I'm going with this, though, is that so you're going to come to us in 3 months with the next quarter report. And for me, I'm just trying to figure out how I'll be able to track that, yeah, we have improved, that, yeah, your teams have come back online and we've seen a dramatic improvement in performance. So maybe that's something that you and I can discuss offline. But I do think it is important for us to be very transparent about where we were missing the mark. And then again, you've been very good about what we've been doing strategy-wise to improve the mark. But then we also need to be able to then show the public that, yeah, these changes have actually done exactly what they were intended to do. I would imagine, though, that I guess barring the more accurate, reliable software, you've got the data that you have that is, for lack of a better word, somewhat cross-contaminated because of the changes in routes. I don't know, have y'all been using 311 as well in terms of trying to, again, I'm just trying to figure out how we can, 3 months from now, hear you and say, yeah, we've improved.
So the quick answer to that question, the service delivery manager position that I mentioned earlier, that position will, of course, use the 311 data that we collect, as well as creating a manual process in conjunction with Deputy Commissioner Robinson, who manages our performance team. And so we will use just basic charts and electronic tables to input the information and to be able to procure the software program. So we're working on that. Now, I'm confident by the next reporting period, we will have clean data. It will be much more manually driven. So the software program that we're looking to procure will automate many of our processes.
Okay. And then on switching gears here, page 13, the solid waste service tonnage, saw some, the numbers that you presented. Are those depressed at all because of service delivery challenges?
So we were actually looking at the month of December. You'll notice that the numbers appear to be slightly lower. We're trying to do a job to understand if our staffing challenges were a direct result of the drop in those numbers. But we don't have a definitive answer right now, but we're still looking into it.
Okay. And then my final question has to do with the financial information. You showed numbers that are well below kind of 50% where we would expect to be after 2 quarters of operations. How much of that, though, is a result of your vacant positions? So it's a 2-part question. That's number one. And the second part is, will we see kind of a swing to the other side in this quarter where we're returning to more full staffing levels, but you're also still layering in additional contract work with, for example, the partnerships with landscaping companies to catch up and meet service delivery?
All right, so that's another great question. So, of course, personnel is for any department will be one of your biggest expenses. And as we begin to bring on additional staff members, it will also balance the budget out, because as we bring on more staff members, the need for the assistance of contract labor will actually reduce. So I believe that the number that you currently see, again, we were, I believe, at 43% with fleet and 47% in our solid waste division, that those are pretty close and accurate representations of where we would be regardless if we were fully staffed or if we were using the assistance of contracted service providers.
Okay, so Q2 you're saying actually does include the supplemental services that we're going outside to get, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then are we in Q3, just kind of looking ahead to where we are now, are we still kind of keep maintaining the same level of outside help and support as we are continuing to staff up? So could we potentially actually swing to the other side? Understandably, I'd rather do that and utilize some of this additional unused capacity. But will we see a swing to the other side?
Yeah, so that number will fluctuate some because some of the services that we provide are based on seasonal demands, such as yard waste. So we will.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
So, yeah, we will ramp up some of our much of our staffing going into Q3 for our right-of-way maintenance as we go into our growing season. So that number changes just based on seasonal demand.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, you're up.
Thank you for coming today, and congratulations on receiving your accreditation from the American Public Works Association. I know how important that was to us. I have a staffing question. I know we have 192 positions not filled. What's the timeline or the approximate timeline to bring one person on? Was one question. And another one is, if we fill the position, will the Department of Public Works be able to take care of the entire city and without using outside partnerships? Because I know council members have typically went into their own budget to pay partnership.
So I'll have to defer on the average amount of time with the Department of Human Resources, and it really varies according to the positions that we recruit for. Currently, we're having challenges with onboarding some of our environmental service workers due to the submittal of some of the required paperwork. They're developed a strategy to address that issue in particular. And so as far as your question is, if we're fully staffed, if we will be able to address issues that occur in each district. So our staffing levels are commensurate with the services that we have deemed to be necessary for each district. So the answer to your question is yes. I will tell you that in some areas, we do have more of a challenge with litter removal, just because of the nature of some of the areas that have some more gas stations or commercial businesses that sell goods that will ultimately result in the disposal of litter, the improper disposal of litter on the right of way. So that will always be a challenge. I will tell you that Mayor Dickens has been very persistent and out front that we beef up our teams, and particularly Operation Clean Sweep is something that is near and dear to his heart. In fact, he has mandated that all of the commissioners get out and participate in their deputies. And over the last, I believe it's 3 weeks, we have conducted activities over the weekend. And this is just to supplement the work that we are already doing. My point is that we will have a maintenance schedule. And what we're really trying to work on now is to provide staffing commensurate with the level of activity that occurs for each area. So that will be our strategy as we deploy crews to perform right-of-way maintenance, whether it's the amount of litter coverage or the growth of vegetation along the right-of-way. So the next presentation, we will provide an update on Operation Clean Sweep and the goals and strategy of that program.
All right. Thank you. I know my goal is for the city to actually hire folks. And the reason why I asked the amount of time it takes is because one person by the name of Andre Webb, he applied in November. And I know he's still going through the process, and here it is February. He applied for the position of environmental service worker. He wanted to work on the back of the trash truck. I have another question. It was on the landfill. Do you know, it says that 3 of the 4 landfills are in compliance. Where is the 4th landfill that is not in compliance, and do you know when will it be up to compliance standards?
So the 4th landfill is the Cascade Road landfill, and I want to be a little bit more clear about the wording and compliance. The readings for the acceptable amount of the tolerance for that particular area was slightly exceeded. So we are, as far as in compliance, as being able to continue moving on and conducting daily activities at that particular landfill. So we're not in danger of losing any of our licenses or out of compliance with the EPD. We have been in contact with them. And so I will tell you this, is that it is always a moving target with keeping the environmental compliance intact with landfills. It's not that we aren't performing preventative maintenance. We are. We have a group of skilled engineers that lead that process. So we will provide an update. I'm confident by the time that we report for the Q3 activity that we will show that things have improved in that particular area. So hopefully I addressed your question. If not, please let me know.
So my question is, when do you think it will be in compliance, or what are we taking the steps to get it in compliance?
I anticipate by when we deliver our next Q3 report that we will be.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Hillis, followed by Ms. Boone.
Thank you, Chairman Shook. Thank you, Commissioner Wiggins. I caught some of your presentation, but not all of it. So I have a few questions. First, starting out with fleet services. Where are we with, I guess, improving timelines for, even basic services, brake pads or oil changes or things like that? I hear, stories of, cars going in and taking, a week plus or longer just to get, a simple service like that. And I've heard a lot of, sometimes it's parts that we're waiting on. And I don't know if it's a fire issue, but, when you take your personal vehicle to the shop, that shop, of course, does not have every part in stock that, of every car on the road, but, they can quickly call AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts and usually get that part within an hour or so delivered to them. So where are we in that process and speeding that along, and what has been the issue?
So a few things. We have expanded our list of part suppliers. As you know, one of the impacts of COVID, and I hate to use COVID as a reason for many of our challenges, but that's actually the case. And so we've expanded the list of part suppliers, recently partnered with another supplier that was able to furnish parts that we weren't able to source before. In fact, this part supplier is flying parts out of a distribution center from the state of Mississippi, personal plane to get us parts. And so that has improved. We're looking at parts that we may not have stocked before because of the availability of parts. Director Thomas is looking specifically at our core service vehicles, of course. We have increased some of those supplies as they are available. The service delivery manager will also play a huge part in how we interface with each department. A customer service survey will be sent out to some of our departments to understand some of their pain points or any issues that we may be able to address through the department, and looking at establishing possibly new service level agreements that may meet today's demand, just basically ensuring that the service agreements that we have in place are achievable and reasonable at this time for our customers, which are our departments within the city of Atlanta. So a twofold approach. One is a customer service oriented approach. The other approach is increasing our parts suppliers and stocking more equipment on hand than we have had previously.
Understood. And my second question, complete services, which may be related to the length of time it takes to complete such services, is I'd heard we'll call it rumor or gossip or whatever, that at some point in the past week or two, just for using an example, APD had 70 vehicles awaiting service. Is that something that sound like that might be the case, or?
Well, that certainly doesn't sound familiar, and I will personally investigate that today, and I'll reach out to Chief Bryant to see if he has had any concerns. I have not heard of that, and the dashboards that the Department of Fleet Services provide, I have not seen any data that indicates that we've had that many vehicles that were standing and awaiting repairs.
And how does the chain of custody kind of work? Because, I hear about repairs that take a while, a number of vehicles awaiting service at the facility, but then I go to my police precincts and I see what are obviously damaged cars sitting in their parking lots as well. So are those cars that should be at fleet services, or, would that mean they're awaiting service, or why would they be there?
Councilmember Hillis, that would be difficult to say without seeing the vehicles and speaking with our fleet manager, our fleet director. But I'm sure there are vehicles that we have that are probably ready for surplus. I assume those are probably some of the vehicles that you're seeing, but I will look at each facility, and I will also give you a call offline to kind of get an idea of where you're seeing these vehicles to be able to give you a better explanation.
Gotcha. Now moving on from fleet services and going to public works and solid waste services. So one of the Operation Clean Sweeps been talked about in your presentation and by my colleagues. Appreciate those efforts, and had a team out, both your team, special ops along North Avenue, and also the executive team was out on Friday. I was out doing some work myself related to code enforcement and getting some cases moving there. But when we appreciate that effort needs to occur across the city and every council district. But as I've talked about a number of times since you've been on board, and even a longer amount of time before you were onboarded, is addressing the entrances to our city, because that's the thing people see first when they enter Atlanta. And this was talked about, by the previous administration. We never saw a concrete plan. We certainly never saw any concrete results. So what I would ask is that, while we're ongoing with Operation Clean Sweep across the city, is that we see a detailed plan in keeping, the gateways to our city clean. So that's what people see, and that's how people are welcomed to our city when they come into it. So is that something that you can commit to?
Absolutely. In fact, this afternoon, we have our Operation Clean Sweep kickoff meeting. We've engaged a consultant to ensure that we can get that plan up and running in short order. So I can absolutely commit to that. So that is part of the process of engaging this firm to make sure that we have a full and comprehensive approach to doing the work proactively instead of addressing issues after they have already occurred.
Okay. And probably my last question. Where are we with our street sweeping program and getting it back to the SLA of how frequent it is supposed to occur in the districts?
As far as the schedule, according to my last discussion with the manager of our Chester facility, which is the facility where our street sweepers are deployed from, we had some challenges with the repair of that equipment. I need to get an update from them to see if all the vehicles that are needed are fully operational. I don't have that information at this time. I do know that we do have the correct amount of operators now to perform that service. That has not always been the case. So I will have a better indication of where we are with the availability of street sweepers. And so, as you know, the council approved the purchase of street sweepers, and I believe that we have 3 additional street sweepers on order for this cycle to address the availability of street sweepers. So it has been a fluid situation in the past, and our approach to close the gap and the availability of equipment is to purchase the 3 additional street sweepers.
All right, so thank you, and I'll leave it at that, and I look forward to your call. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you. Ms. Boone, you're up.
Thank you so much. I would like to know if we can get someone from HR on this call to discuss the hiring process. We have heard that it has taken someone from November to February, and they still are not hired. We are in need of this process to go quicker than that. And if we can help from our prospective districts with job fairs, et cetera, please let us know. But before this meeting ends, if we could get someone from HR on this call, that would be very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. And what is the current status of the HR leadership? I know a change is or was coming.
Commissioner Norman is in place.
Okay. Let's see if we can get him on the call so that he can answer the questions of Ms. Boone and others, all right? In the meantime, are there other committee members with questions or comments as to the quarterly report? I'm not seeing anyone in the queue. I will say on behalf of the committee, congratulations to Mr. Gray for what is obviously a well-deserved recommendation on his behalf. Obviously a great city employee. All right, well, then let's move on to our first reads while we await Ms. Norman.
Yes, Mr. Chair. One moment. I was just reaching out and spoke with Commissioner Norman. He will be joining the call in a moment. I will go ahead with the first read. Item number 1 is 22-1118, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2022 water and wastewater extension fund budget to anticipate and appropriate funds from the Georgia Department of Transportation in an amount of $11,832,039.00 and transfer watershed reserve funds in the amount of $15,549,333.98 for the Old Alabama Road 48-inch water main relocation project and for the purposes.
All right, thank you. As a first read, we'll take that up next time.
Item number 2 is 22-1085, an ordinance by City Utilities Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to amend the fiscal year 2022 water and wastewater renewal and extension fund budget in the amount of $4 million and 0 cents to transfer funds from the Watershed reserves for appropriations and add funds to the GDOT IGA utility relocation and municipal project and for the purposes.
Is Mr. Bacara with us? Is he perhaps muted?
One moment, Mr. Chair. Councilmember Shook, it doesn't appear that Mr. Bacara is with us right now. I'm not sure if the commissioner, she is on the line and she may want to speak to this item.
Very well. Ms. Browning, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Chairman Shook. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, good morning, Council members, Chairman Shook, Nikita Browning, Commissioner, Department of Watershed Management. The purpose of this legislation is to add $4 million of funding to the GDOT Intergovernmental Agreements Utility Relocation Project. This project provides the intergovernmental agreements and services for the design, construction, and funding coordination necessary for various transportation projects with Georgia Department of Transportation, Atlanta Department of Transportation, and other local municipal governments, controlling right-of-ways that impact the Atlanta utilities. Scope for this project includes relocating or adjusting city water and wastewater infrastructure to resolve conflicts with roadway improvement projects. The size and complexity of roadway projects varies considerably from bridge replacements to pavement resurfacing projects. The specific scope of a typical project is undefined, but will include providing the intergovernmental agreements and services for design, construction, and funding coordination necessary for the various transportation projects, Georgia Department of Transportation, ATO DOT, and other local municipal governments controlling right-of-way. Subject to your questions, that completes my overview.
Well, thank you. Committee members, questions or comments?
One, move approval.
Okay, I'll second that. If there's no questions or comments, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Councilmember Lewis?
Yes.
Thank you. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable.
All right, thank you. And I understand that Commissioner Norman has joined us, so without objection, let's backtrack and go back to Ms. Boone.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, just would like to know what can we do to assist with the process of hiring environmental service workers. We were moving really, really fast with the job fairs, et cetera. What can we do to speed that process up? Do you have any suggestions or anything that we can do?
Good morning, Councilmember Boone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And so, as you're aware, at the latter part of last year, we did respond to a request to make sure that we continue to have dedicated focus to hiring within the Department of Public Works. Since that time, we've hired approximately 71 individuals to support the Department of Public Works, we have focused primarily on two areas. Those have been for our environmental service workers as well as CDL drivers. We have continued to provide opportunities through hiring blitzes, ensuring that we continue to advertise and market those positions. A couple of things that we put in place as well was to ensure that, we did look at the requirements for those positions. The ESW position no longer requires the high school diploma or GED requirement. And we do have streamlined that process to ensure that, we do recognize that the city of Atlanta continues to be a second chance employer. So that obviously, limits, any type of background results that would disqualify the majority of those applicants. We continue to see a healthy pool of applicants, and those positions are required to go through the physical and drug screening process. But outside of that, we have significantly streamlined that process. The last component that we have shored up recently is to ensure that as far as making sure that those within that applicant pool who may tend to have some technological challenges, that as we go through the onboarding process, we do have on-site opportunities to actually sit down with folks to make sure that we can get all of that paperwork that is required to be timely completed and submitted. So we definitely think we have designed a process definitely for those ESW positions to have a really streamlined onboarding process. Obviously, for the CDLs, that is a couple of additional steps because, of course, for those who are licensed, there is an actual driving test that is required as part of the application process and screening process. And so we do coordinate with the Department of Public Works to facilitate those hiring blitz for CDL drivers as well. And so we definitely have continued to be responsive to those challenges as they present themselves. But we do have a healthy pool, and we are continuously onboarding folks within those position slots.
Thank you, Commissioner. What is the timeline? Is it 4 to 6 weeks for onboarding once an applicant comes forward? What is the time of that?
Yeah, so for a position such as the ESW, the max on that should be a 4-week period. But in lots of cases, we should be under that 4-week process, especially now that we have streamlined the requirements for those positions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lewis, you're up.
Hello, Commissioner. This is Councilman Lewis. I had a couple questions. I have be so specific. I have one person by the name of Andre Webb, who I'm pretty sure you probably heard his name. He applied for a position in November, and I've been working with him. The mayor was working with him. He's going to call me Friday and ask what's going on. And I know I've been sending over a group of people every week of folks who should be hired. Or we got a list that should be coming to you every week that folks should be hired. And that's since I got elected. I know those folks started applying in November. None of them have been onboarded. So we're asking specifically, what's the timeline? Does a person go from applied to hired?
Yeah, and so thank you, Councilmember Lewis. And so as I indicated for the onboarding, so the normal benchmark, from the point that a position is posted until an offer is normally tendered, the benchmark for that is normally 35 days and under. And then individuals are required to go through, once they actually accept an offer, then those individuals then go through the onboarding process. For the ESW and the CDL positions, Both of those positions would then be required to go through the background process. And so that is going to be inclusive of, doing the criminal background and also making sure that individuals then submit to the physical and the drug testing regimen as well. And once we receive those results back and individuals complete all of the associated paperwork, then they would be eligible to complete the onboarding process. If there are particular, candidates, and I know that, there are situations which is why we have started the on-site interactions with individuals, because some individuals do not complete and submit all of the appropriate releases and all of those things once they receive the offer letter. But that is a requirement to complete the background checks and things of that nature. And so clearly, if there are individual situations, I'm more than happy to get with you offline and make sure we drill down into those respective cases to see if there is something particular to that individual that has stalled that process that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, please do, because I'm just afraid if this person was able to reach me and reach the mayor, and I know the mayor and Theo, they directly have been working to get this person hired because of how long he's been working. If he's been able to get access to us, imagine the folks that aren't able to get access to us. So I'm afraid, I'm nervous that folks have applied for these positions, and we got 192 that are available, and they're getting stuck somewhere. And so I would like to meet with you because if we can't find the people that I've been sending directly to you, because none of them have been on board, and I know it's been over 4 weeks. I'm just figuring, do we really want to hire folks? Or do we want to outsource jobs? Because I come from the union, and I'm hearing that Georgia Works is that the partners are staffed up and they're able to hit. And in fact, I was directly told to the city council to actually give money to the outsource to the people that we've been contracting with. I don't want to do that. I want the city to hire folks. I want people to get good city strong jobs, less turnover. But it sounds like even Commissioner Wiggins, it sounds like everything's getting held up in human resources.
Well, as I said, I think if we look at the metrics, we'll see the continuous onboarding that we have provided for ESW candidates. Once again, I'm more than happy to see if there is a bottleneck somewhere. Happy to meet with you directly after the City Utilities Committee, and we can actually walk through any of those applicants, and then I can actually have the data pulled. So I do have my talent acquisition staff with me here today in the office, and we're more than happy to drill down so we can get some factual data so we can see what is holding up the process. Because all of the data that I have seen, once again, there's a healthy pool, and we do continue to onboard those individuals. But we can take a look at those specific candidates and make sure that there is not some disconnect between the Department of Human Resources and the Department of Public Works.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Anyone else on the committee with questions for the HR Commissioner? I am not seeing anybody in the queue. All right, then let's go back to the action items on the agenda then.
Item number 3 is 22-01113, an ordinance by Councilmember Dustin Hillis authorizing the mayor and his designee on behalf of the City of Atlanta to execute a quitclaim deed, releasing any interest the City of Atlanta may have in a portion of District Line Road and Carlos Street located in Land Lot 259 of the 17th District of Fulton County for the public purpose of returning property to an effective utilization status in order to clear title to the property and for the purposes.
Thank you. Mr. Hillis.
Thank you, Chairman Shook. We've been requested to hold this, but before we do so, I would just like to hear from law department as to what the specific holdup is and what the timeline is to resolve this, because we've been working at this for probably over a month now. So just like to hear from all about what the path forward is.
Yeah, thank you. Law department.
Hello, all. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Roger Van Dyer from the Law Department. The Law Department is requesting to just be held for our approximate timeline is 30 days. As the legislation indicates, Watershed has an easement in this area, and pursuant to the Master Bond Ordinance, Watershed has to follow certain steps to divest itself of the system interest. That includes going through a third-party consultant to confirm that the system no longer needs the asset, and then to get the opinion of bond counsel that it conforms with the bond requirements. So we are requesting an opportunity to complete that process, and we anticipate it being done within the next 30 days.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be following up with law and with Watershed about the timeline. As I said, this is, even though this was just introduced last week, this has been on the radar and been a request for some time. So I'll support the motion to hold, but I'm hopeful we can look at speeding this up and move it forward by the next utilities meeting. So I will make a motion to hold.
Second one. So, let me chime in. This looks like an utterly benign piece of legislation. We have to bring in outside counsel. Is that correct?
Mr. Shook, this is again Roger Van Dyer, Law Department. Yes, it's pursuant to the Master Bond Ordinance. It's a procedural step just to confirm, and it's there for the protection of the bondholders.
Why can't we get this done in the next cycle?
The hope is to get it done by the next cycle. I'm just asking for 30 days. If we can get it done sooner, we would certainly do so.
Well, I'm extraordinarily unenthusiastic about sending more stuff out to outside counsel that, that I question the need for. I think this should be, why would it take instead of one cycle?
Again, Mr. Shook, we will be happy to complete the process as soon as possible. I'm just having to account for third parties to complete the work, including a consultant, to confirm the asset is no longer needed by the system, or that the divestiture has been actually beneficial to the system, and to go through the outside counsel. So it always takes a little bit of time. But we will certainly do our absolute best to get it done in the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Motion's been made and properly seconded. I wonder if the motioner and the seconder would consent to moving it forward with approval, based on a 2-week time frame.
So a 2-week time certain hold instead?
Well, the two most useless words in our lexicon, right, are time certain. We all understand that, but I wouldn't mind kind of going on record and saying we expect to get this done.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chairman Shook. These are, rather benign things. They're what we call paper streets in the city of Atlanta that have never been streets. And I believe the first time this was reached out about, the interested parties said they didn't even exist, and they were only showing up on old parcel maps and things like that. So, I mean, we really need to get this done in 2 weeks. So I'm supportive of that.
Mr. Watt?
Team player, so yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is held. Oh, I'm sorry. Forwarded with no recommendation.
All right, let's move on. Thank you.
Now we're moving to held items, which we have an amendment for. Item number 4, 22R3005. The resolution by City Utilities Committee authorizes the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for invitation to bid contract number listed, Sewer Group 4, Small Diameter Rehabilitation Contract A with Ruby Collins Incorporated on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 548 calendar days and an amount not to exceed $17,995,397.15. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed. And the amendment will add the independent procurement review report to the legislation.
All right, thank you. Committee members, the iPro report has been sent to us. It's clean. It as to the winning of the selected vendor, it did pick up some additional infractions and infirmities with one of the ones that was disqualified. So I'll go ahead and move that we accept the amendment.
Second one.
Are there questions or comments? If not, let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Councilmember Lewis? The motion to amend has been approved with 1 nay. The amendment is before you.
I will move approval as amended.
Second one.
Let's open her up.
One moment. The vote is closed. 7 yeas, 0 nays. This item is favorable as amended.
All right, now let's hang on a minute because my screen indicated that there was a meeting to speak, but when I clicked on it, I couldn't get to someone. Mr. Lewis, was that? I apologize. Was that you? And if so, you have before.
It was by mistake. Wrong button.
Okay. All right. Thank you then. All right, Ms. Kempson, right?
And Councilmember Lewis, we will update that vote for you for item number 4, the amendment. Item number 5 is 22R3115, a resolution by City